The problem with society,
It's fabulous what's happening.
the problem with the arts,
It's hard not to find something you like.
the problem with anything today in the second decade of the 21st century.
I've seen it all since 1980.
We're all living with the legacy thinking of the last century.
Design and innovation are both exactly what will provide the jobs of the future.
Being able to take those ideas and make them into reality.
A transformation occurs when the old thinking falls away and new thinking emerges.
There's a great value actually in being located in Sarasota, because actually Sarasota started as a real arts community.
Obviously, it's a great place to live. Mr. Ringling's meteorologist said this is where there won't be a hurricane, and there's yet to be one. That's 100 years ago. When you have a safe situation, it's a great situation to live in. That's one thing. The second thing is we get a lot of affluent people who retire down here. They're educated, they're upscale. I know a lot of media people have retired here. So they bring an interest in the arts and they want to participate.
So it has a real legacy and love of arts and culture, and it has many, many patrons who really feel strongly about the arts, and that's why they move here. That's the reason for their coming to Sarasota.
And of course, you have the Ringling College of Art and Design. And you have the Ringling Museum. Which are two of the anchors of this creative region. I always say to people, this is the only place I would live in Florida because it's got a disproportionate amount of culture per capita.
You know, without the arts here, that we would just be another beach town in Florida, because this is what makes it distinctive.
Shortly after 1910, Sarasota would transcend again, this time with the arrival of Ringling brothers, and most significantly, John and Mabel Ringling.
He was a circus maestro. He, at one point, was one of the wealthiest men in the United States. From the top of his mansion, everywhere he looked was his property. He was known really for his circus work, but he was also a major developer. He is one of the instrumental figures in Sarasota history about bringing people to this community to live.
He's one of the first people to use art as an economic development tool.
Ringling Museum of Art was created by John and Mabel Ringling as a vision of their legacy to leave to the people of Florida specifically, but to all people, as a statement of what they had achieved in their life and their appreciation of the finer things.
When they moved here, it was such a quiet, beautiful, natural area. It didn't really have any industry, and he really captured the idea of what it could become. So he started investing in the early 20s. He bought all the property that we today enjoy as the Keys. So he had Longboat Key, he had St. Armand's Circle, Bird Key. And what I love about that is he really thought of the people, besides an artistic expression, just having a museum and donating a huge collection. He actually wanted to do more for this community. And because of what he's done, it is the most artistic, I think, community in Florida, especially on the West Coast. I think this is a very appreciated aspect to the community, and it's all because of John Ringling.
When the legendary movie, The Greatest Show on Earth, was filmed on its city streets, Sarasota was on the map as a circus town.
The Ringling brothers, particularly John and Charles, who were the two youngest of the brothers that started the circus, were very influential in land development in Sarasota and also in developing the tourist market. They really saw something special in Sarasota, and when they made their winter homes here, they decided that they would use that as an opportunity to make the town more exciting by bringing in the circus winter quarters here. We founded the Circus Museum in 1946, the first official director of the Ringling Museum, Everett Chick Austin came in and took over the estate, and his first request was that he be allowed to start a museum dedicated to the history of the American circus. In the first building that visitors come to at the Ringling Museum, the Tibbles Learning Center, we have a wonderful model circus. It's a miniature circus that covers almost 4,000 square feet, and it replicates the circus in its heyday when it's very largest in the early part of the 20th century. So that's a wonderful opportunity for people to see exactly how large the circus was when it used to travel on rail, and it would move all of its 1,200 people every day to another town to create the same experience over and over again for people around the United States. We also have the real objects and props and advertising materials. We have wonderful circus posters dating back into the 1800s to show the advertising and the beautiful art of circus advertising. And that we have elements on display at all times of that. We also have the wagons that we're surrounded by here, the real objects of the circus, which are a great comparison to the miniature objects in the Tibbles Learning Center. I'm sitting in front of one of the wagons. It's a calliope. The harp and jester calliope was used by several circuses, particularly the Ringling Circus, in the mid-20th century, and one of its prime locations, people would have seen it on the midway playing music, calling people into the various tents and attractions of the show. We have the Wisconsin car, which was John Ringling's private railroad car. He used it to travel sometimes with the circus, sometimes in advance of the show. And it was one of the few cars that was owned by a private individual in the early part of the 20th century. So that's very special. We have wonderful pieces of wardrobe that have been donated from circuses and circus performers, both locally and nationally. And almost anything one could look for to tell the story of circus, we have some example here in the gallery.
We're so thankful that Chick did that because we're able to show both sides of this major donor.
Because his belief was the circus was where Ringling had started his career and had started the business that led him to this wonderful estate. So the Circus Museum celebrates that legacy of John Ringling.
He decided to build Cottizan to show what wealth could create for a small community. A Venetian Gothic building that represents their love and love of Italy. So when that was completed, they decided together, John and Mabel, that they wanted to do this wonderful art museum and make a gift to the state of Florida. So it was a planned gift, basically.
The museum was founded in 1936 when John Ringling passed away. He bequeathed the museum to the state of Florida. It took 10 years for them to work out all the details regarding it. And then we opened to the public in 1946. And people in this community have access to a world-class collection of work that a town of Sarasota size, to have something like that is phenomenal.
The way the cultural community is now is largely the way it was 20 years ago, because that's the way we like it, right?
The Art Association was founded in 1926. We support the local artists. That's what we're all about. I think over the years, art has moved away from just painting. The bulk of people involved here are painters in some way or another, but we also have moved into a lot of collage artists. We do fiber art, we do printmaking, sculpture, clay, installation, video. You know, it's all moving towards technology. And it's just like music. You know, music was instruments, but now it's moving towards technology and electronics. And art is kind of doing the same thing, but you know, there'll always be musicians that want to play instruments. There are always going to be artists that need to touch clay, that need to have a paintbrush in their hand. So I think it all can work well. I mean, just digital media right now has given artists so much more exposure. They all have websites, they can sell their artwork online, they can reach a larger audience, and a lot of them are combining digital into their work. So it's kind of interesting where it's going.
It was always part of the Ringling's vision to have a school attached to the museum. Original plans show that there was the idea of having a building attached for students to appreciate the masters in the collection and to learn here on site. Times being what they were, that was transformed and the Ringling College grew outside of this estate, but still fulfill a lot of what John and Mabel had hoped for from the institution.
The Arts Center gives them an opportunity to show their work. We have juried exhibitions. A lot of Ringling students submit to our juried exhibitions, the fine arts students, which is great, and they've won prizes and things like that. So we love having that community involved.
Ringling College is very engaged with the community. Part of our mission is being a very, very good citizen, helping to educate people and to also really be part and parcel of a partner in the development of this entire community.
The transformation in Ringling College is the students that go through it. I find an incredible creativity, an incredible desire to create and to know and to learn. And I think that somehow needs to be better integrated into a city and a region that's demographically skewing much older. It wasn't until about 90 years ago that a musician could play and could be heard by somebody who wasn't in the room. The recording industry is less than 100 years old. So up until Caruso in the early part of the last century, anybody who was a great musician, Beethoven, Mozart, anybody who could play could only be heard by people who were in the room. So think about that. That is the current definition of the performing arts in Sarasota, the way it was 100 years ago. Oh, no, we've got microphones for those that are hard of hearing so you can hear it, but it's still in the same room.
You know, there's a lot of history involved in why the performing arts are so prevalent in Sarasota. I think it really goes back to the namesake of Ringling College. John Ringling, when they brought the circus here in the early days, if you think about it, those were the rock stars of that era. And when John and his troupe was here, they would bring in performers from all over the world, which brought people with a performing arts mindset, a cultural mindset, and that attracted more people who were like-minded. And I think the citizens that came here, Sarasota was fortunate to have a very deep visual artistic community, people that were heavily into the visual arts.
We've expanded to Bradenton.
We're in Bradenton on the Riverwalk, and it is absolutely fabulous.
The performing arts affect this community in many, many ways. I mean, one of the obvious ones is it makes it a great community to live in. It brings, content to our lives. It brings challenge to our thought processes. But far beyond that, the arts and cultural community in Sarasota is a major economic driver for this community.
Bingo! This world was made for all. So play your favorite music every day.
And I think that type of thinking said to the people, we need to have an opera house. We need to make sure that this community has a symphony orchestra. And I think that the community got directed on making sure the arts were here because it was that type of place. It was the kind of thing that we wanted. And it evolved. And as more came, more happened. And it turned out to be something that's grown over the years and has really been such a benefit to this community from all directions. The other thing that happens as a result of that is the impact on tourism. So once people find out that this jewel is here, that they can see first-class opera, first-class ballet, they can go to the theater, they can go to art schools, they can go to galleries, it's a natural for people who who love that type of lifestyle in this beautiful place. So the impact on Sarasota County is enormous. I think we have to look regionally. If you look at Manatee County, Sarasota County, we have several artistic venues. We're one of 7 communities in the United States that has our own opera house. You know, you always think that opera is prevalent everywhere, but there's not that many communities that have their own opera house. We have a first-rate symphony orchestra that is recognized not only regionally, but throughout the country. Our ballet program here is among the very finest. You can't then forget the museum, the Ringling Museum, and its treasure of paintings and offerings from that point of view. And when you look at the whole Florida State University complex of the performing arts with the Oslo Repertory Theater, the ballet, the museum, the circus museum, it's a treasure for a community like this to have this many different types of venues for the performing arts. And one of the great things that happens then is our performing arts groups get to be very creative. And it's not at all uncommon to go to Art Center Sarasota and see a dance performance by Fusion Dance or one of our troupes that may not have their own facility, but they're looking to be able to perform throughout the community. And it just gives us a wide breadth of offerings. We have several theaters here, the Oslo Repertory Theater, Florida Studio Theater, Players Theater in Sarasota and in Bradenton. So throughout the entire community, the performing arts are really a dominant force in the arts in this area.
Whenever transformation or some kind of really impactful wave hits the arts, it's always coming from outside the establishment.
Ringling College is, I think, by any measure, a real jewel for Sarasota. What Ringling brings is kind of a constant flow into the community of bright young people who are committed to the arts. They have talent. They're not really sure where they're going, but they come here and they learn things, whether it's traditional painting or digital art or whatever it may be. And having their energy here, having these young people in this community, many of them leave and go somewhere else and maybe come back after a while, but more and more of them are staying and they're seeking places and to come and to add energy.
Largest ever graduating class of Ringling College.
You have a first-class arts college that has done a great job internally of being able to forge relationships on a worldwide basis with producers and movie makers and other artists. Bring in top companies that you bring in to recruit your students. That gives Sarasota a reference. It gives people in Los Angeles know about Sarasota. People in New York know about Sarasota. And a big piece of that influence is the Ringling College and the flow of people and talented artistic people and families that it brings here.
You've grown up in an entirely different environment. Everything's immediate. You know, the world's knowledge, the world's entertainment, YouTube, 2 or 3 clicks away. But I would bet the millennial generation, those born between 1981 and 1997, the percent of those that are artistically inclined that are going into performing arts is much lower than percentages of previous generations.
I think realistically the performing arts are having to work harder now than they've ever had to work. And they're doing a good job, they're working hard at it. At the same time, their traditional supporters are getting older. And one of the things that all of the arts are faced with on a nationwide basis, the classical arts in particular, the classical performing arts, is bringing new audiences into their venues.
Right now there are great exhibits in New York. I was there last week at the Museum of Modern Art at the Metropolitan. But what's the news coming out of the New York art scene? Banksy's in New York, and Banksy is painting all over the 5 boroughs. So when you're going to start getting people who are doing street theater, who are doing multi-sensory environment out in the parks, projecting on the buildings, and people can come for free or people can pay or whatever it is, and then there's 5 or 6 standard theaters, they're going to be competing for a smaller part of the pie. So they're going to have to change to some degree. Creativity is the #1 quality that corporate America wants. Creative solutions to problems, creative problem solving. when I get asked the question, I get questioned all the time by concerned parents, what should my daughter, learn when she's going to college? I always say two things. One, if your daughter or your son has a passion, follow that passion, because being really good at something is very congruent to loving what you do. If you love what you do, you tend to get good at it. Absence that passion, get a traditional liberal arts education, because the future of America is for generalists, people who can assimilate an exploding amount of data, find patterns, come to creative solutions.
Theater has a way of changing the lives of people. It tells the story of human existence. So we come into the theater to learn, to grow, to see issues from different points and interests. So I look for my shows to do the same thing, but more than anything to entertain, take people away from their tears and sorrows of everyday life into a fantasy world for just a little while, ease their pain.
You know what? I think it's time we go back and check on that Saigon boy.
And I learned how to get along. But now you're back.
I was an actor here in Sarasota for some years, working professionally in the theaters, and just realized that there was an extreme lack of inclusiveness and diversity. So I began to talk to area directors that I was working with. I was getting answers like, it's too much of a risk. We don't know about doing diverse shows because African Americans don't attend theater here in Sarasota, and we don't know if our patrons would really like it or embrace it, and then it just wasn't enough for me to get these answers. I felt that something should be done about it. There should be a more inclusive, diverse platform. I was going to start a platform that truly celebrated people and stories about me. That was the beginning of West Coast Black Theater Troupe.
West Coast Black Theater Troupe has brought a diversity to this community that we did not have before. And one of the most exciting things to me about that is that all of our arts and cultural groups, in addition to doing what they do from their artistic presentation, are dedicated to education and the arts and education. And for young African American students to see professional performers on the stage that they can mentor from, and to be able to have that look at diversity, again, just opens up another avenue for the community that we didn't have before and that a lot of communities do not have.
98% of my players are from Sarasota, Manatee County. And they come in our doors, they get training, and then people see them on the stage. And most of our patrons many times think we're bringing in people from New York, and they are homegrown talent right here in the city that really blows people away when they come on stage to do their work.
He's got a theater now that is 93% sold out most of the time.
I think that Sarasota, to remain one of the cultural capitals of this region of the United States, needs to encourage transformative and different forms of creativity and more open definitions of what art and creativity is.
What we are liking is the lack of support for the arts. We just hope that the nation would really sympathize with the issues that arts organizations have when it comes to funding. Performing arts in general will always be very prevalent because people need entertainment like they need food and water. And it's been since the beginning of time. When there was poverty going on all over the nation, there was theater. If we don't tell our stories, no one will. It's important that the history and experience of African American culture, and for that matter, every culture, to be propagated throughout generations, because who is going to know them if somebody does not take the responsibility of continuing to tell them? African Americans and 20-somethings, they just think theater is not their thing until they come through the door, and then they go like, oh my gosh, I never thought it was like this, and then we can't keep them away. But there are some people, they are born to be artists. That is their purpose. They're not the scientists, they're not the mathematicians, they're not the historian, they are the artist. And they were born to be the artist. So it needs to be looked at on the same importance as people put all this money toward the doctors and they're going to be a doctor. Yeah, that is a necessity in the world, but just like I said, the artist is as well as a necessity because we are healing.
Remember, the history of art has always been the great ones were the ones that were outside what was accepted.
TEDx Sarasota is a local event open to everyone. It's open to the public this year. It stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design, right? TED. And TEDx stands for a local creation that we are designing, curating, and producing here. This year, I call it the Big TED. So there's a bigger concern called TED that we mentioned earlier. And their theme for this year is positive disruption. As a team, when we got together to talk about what should we name it this year, we thought that was pretty great. And so we wanted something that had a flavor of that, but certainly not copying that. And in looking at what was possible and playing around with some terminology, we came up with Harmonious Havoc. Selecting people who speak in a variety of areas, right? Remember, technology, entertainment, and design is how it was created.
Why waste good technology on science and medicine? So it's kind of absurd. It makes it a bit funny.
I was very honored to have the opportunity to speak, and I chose to speak on that intersection of biology, technology, and art, and how that affects the work and the way that we communicate.
It is the first decade of 21st century thought. I think future historians, say 2100, can look back and go, 2010 to 2020 was the decade when humanity first started thinking 21st century thought. So we're right at that cusp. So the younger you are, the more you will understand that.
BioLucid is an immersive technologies company. We are focused on creating the next generation of tools for physicians to use to communicate much better with their patients in a visual way.
Sarasota is a wonderful community that is moving further and further into a creative community, as we know, and becoming more interested and activated by the innovation economy, and is really embracing innovation. So it's very exciting to be a part of that conversation. Not only the conversation, but literally bringing it to life and then shining a light on people in our community and who could influence our community.
I think there's a great opportunity for all of us, if we embrace this, to create a whole entire new economy based on innovation and design and technology.
If you think about the word innovation, it is nothing more than creativity meeting the marketplace. So you have to have creativity first to get innovation.
We are a very collaborative company. The people who work here, the artists and the programmers, the designers and the scientists, all collaborate together to create not only accurate, but also the most engaging experiences for the end user. And we all, of course, need to communicate very tightly to be able to achieve our goals. We find that that's a lot of 3D digital content creation, packages such as Maya. We also use After Effects. We also use a lot of Nuke. On the programming side, programming in Xcode and the Apple iOS tools, as well as software development kits for the Oculus Rift for virtual reality. We use whatever gets the job done.
Technology is a great item, but unless you can figure out how to humanize it, the people aren't really going to be able to connect, or the users aren't going to be able to connect properly with that technology.
The humanizing piece really starts with a deep understanding of people and searching for unmet needs or latent needs. And once you really understand what people want and what people really need, then you can begin to express it.
We make very large investments into the computer infrastructure that we have. Allows us to develop products very, very quickly, to be able to conceptualize them, and to be able to put them on our network and share them with our clients real time, very quickly, no matter where they are, anywhere in the world.
We're a product development firm that we can take ideas from the ether and actually turn them into manufacturable products that meet our clients' business needs.
With adversity comes opportunity.
To me, meaningful innovation is when you take a great idea, a novel idea, a new thing, a new invention, and then it's recognized by the marketplace.
When you talk about technology in Road Brady, there's two camps. One camp is the technology that's coming in the product that we're developing. And that has been, I can't imagine there's ever been a better time to be an industrial designer in the last 24, 25 years. The types of technology from fuel cells and all the exploration that's going on with energy exploration in the technology fields of energy, with healthcare and with electric vehicles, as an example, has really been able to keep us quite busy. And that's the technology that's coming in the door. What's beautiful about the Rapid Prototyping Group in the building next door to us is that they really own getting the product right, and they're the last people to touch a product before it leaves.
3D printing has been huge for us. You know, we've got a 3D printer here at the studio now, and 4 years ago, we got a 5-axis CNC mill, and we were like, great, we can mill all our own parts, and now we've got a 3D printer for a little over a year now, which the technology's been around, but we got one of our own, so an FDM machine. So now we're just firing parts off the print. So mechanical design can create something, and then we can just shoot it right to the 3D printer, and the next morning go and grab it and use it, and it's made out of rigid ABS, and it's strong, and it's really helped us from a design studio to kind of elevate the game and speed up what used to take a lot longer to complete.
So what we've seen from the advent of bringing three-dimensional printing into the studio is an incredible increase in our rate of response to our voice of customer programs. That's allowing us to get to a favored solution very quickly, and that's something that we can translate over to our customers, and it's been very successful. The future of 3D printing is immense. I think we will see in our lifetime an amazing game change through the 3D printing industry.
We're at this moment. This decade is the moment where we're going to look back, by 2030 for sure, we're going to look back in Sarasota, those of us that are alive and living here, and kind of go, remember when it used to be, how it used to be way back there in 2013? God, has it changed. It's changed so much. So we're about ready to undergo great change.
Creativity and innovation is the number one leadership skill needed for business leaders in the future. The problem that occurs is that we tend to beat creativity out of people in our schools, and then we also beat it out often in many businesses. And so now all of a sudden business people go, well, we need creative ideas and we need to be innovative, and so people go, I'm not creative. Well, the truth is they were creative at one time. We just have clogged it up.
So it is very much about people who see solutions where it seems there's only insanity and nothing to salvage. We like people who, again, like art, right? We take chaos and we turn it into some creative outcome, who make, music from madness.
With art, it's something where I've always felt it was much easier, much more effective to try and take an amazing artist and teach them about science than it would be to try and expect that a scientist was going to be able to create amazing art.
One of the things here about Ringling College that is so great is, we just have this incredible creative energy that just envelopes the entire campus. I mean, you come onto campus and it just permeates the environment, permeates individuals who come, etc. We have a new program called the Collaboratory. What the Collaboratory is about is trying to make certain that the students who come to Ringling have the opportunity to work on real-world projects with real-world clients, and they'll have that opportunity before they graduate.
I always refer to Ringling as the the art institution of the 21st century.
In my opinion, the most important thing you learn in design school is the ability to put your stuff on the wall and let somebody give you positive and negative feedback, be able to take that feedback and not take it personally, but this is the feedback, whether it's a client or your boss or whatever, and use that to create updated designs that will eventually become final, accepted, and purchased by the client.
A good design and understanding that goes all the way back to, you know, icons like Leonardo da Vinci, or in our business, Raymond Loewy or Mies van der Rohe. It's that they really took that into account, and now it's just become, I think, more widespread.
Most people aren't thinking about the future, they're caught up in their daily lives.
This is where the future lies. It is all about creative thinking and being able to take those ideas and make them into reality.
Only innovation can come from that. Only better results can occur because we're all raising the bar together.
It's called creative destruction. Old things fall away so new ones can be born. And I think the younger generation, those that are in their 20s, even into their early 30s, just need to do things differently.
Design and innovation are exactly what will provide the jobs of the future, will provide all of the advancements of the future that, you know, as a species, I think we'll be able to advance ourselves through, you know, the innovations that come about.
People will wait in line for hours to go see a Monet exhibit or Impressionist exhibit. But those guys were rejected by the status quo. Picasso, rejected by the status quo. The futurism of the early 20th century, rejected by the status quo. So whenever transformation or some kind of really impactful wave hits the arts, it's always coming from outside the establishment. And so basically that's what I'm saying has to happen here. If one wants Sarasota to be the cultural point of light of this state in 2030, it can't look like it looks today.